All right, guys. So what I want to cover here today for anybody inside any of our data programs here at Audience Lab, I get asked this quite often. Now that I have access to the data and I'm reselling some of it, and this is applicable to multiple programs and different packages that we offer. But how do I really sell this, right? So first off, guys, I created a video more for people kind of before they come into our ecosystem to understand exactly what and how they're going to be selling with data as a service or with data packages. Now I want to go over the specifics of now that you're into the program, you have access to the data, and maybe you're already booking sales calls. You have clients that you want to speak to and offer this to that you're doing other services for, and this is complementary to that or ties into that, right? So what I want you to have is what I want to give you a look over is what we call our Master Doc Sales Lab sales framework or overview. Now, I don't want this to be confused with a script. This is a framework. So first off, what I tell all of my clients and students and people selling is first off, all these bold areas where they're highlighted in bold: introduction, situation, problem, impact the problem, solution, impact the solution, tie down, consequence of inaction, temp check, and then the price, present, and close. Like, first off, you just got to get all these down and go through them in sequential order. So that's the first thing I tell people to focus on. And then we want to improve upon each one of these and get better and better as we go. And really the one that takes the most emphasis is the situation phase. So this aspect of it that is now highlighted on my screen, this I build custom to each offer. This is in particular how we need to do it for our audience, different audience packages, and how my sales team does this. When anybody clicks on this or gets access to this, I would go on the left over here where it says file, drop that down, right? Sorry, my face is in the way. Let me minimize that. Drop that down and then just click make copy and then make your own copy, and you'll be able to go in and edit and make any changes, right? This version that I give you is just a template that we use, and you're not going to be able to edit. So go make your own copy. But what I usually tell people is this is what I do custom to each offer. Now, this framework and this script, for lack of a better phrase, I'm going to keep using framework, but most people would call it a script, has equated to over $30 million sold by me and my direct business partner, Jesse. That's what we crafted this out of by lots of tests and lots of results. And then we implemented this into a minimum of 26 different niches and industries. That's when I stopped counting. I know we've actually integrated it into more, but once we got to a certain number, I just really stopped keeping track, to be honest. So this is proven, rinse and repeat, and then I customize this to each particular offer. Most namely, I'm customizing the situation phase, and I'm going to customize the pitch, and you'll see when we get down to that. But the situation phase, I tell people there's generally about 6 to 8 questions or data points we're going to want to ask in here, right? So let's just go and pretend this is the kickoff of the call. So let's say we have some ads running, somebody's seeing about your XYZ closing system or your in-market first party high intent driven data, and then they book a call with you, right? I like to start off after my quick little intro with, hey, Ray, so I'm curious what kind of inspired you to hop on the call, and they're going to tell you what they liked in your ad. This is going to give you reinforcement on what hooks and angles are working, and when you start to hear the same things over and over, you want to double down on those hooks and those ads and make more ad sets similar to that, similar hooks, and then maybe different creative afterwards. But yeah, hey man, I'm inspired. I'm curious what inspired you to hop on the call. Well, Ray, I'm already running ads and my profitability has gone down. My CPA has gone up consistently, and I'm just looking for solutions for that. Okay, great. So that being said, Ray, what were you really hoping? What is your primary objective to get out of today's call? That way I can really focus on what's important to you, and maybe not some things I might only talk about that don't really apply to you. Well, Ray, my main goal is understanding the system, the efficacy, and really I want to understand the price and if it's going to fit into my budget. Great, that's awesome. So I'll cover all this, a little bit later on in the call. And I took notes. I'm going to make sure to address these things. But really, so I can start, would you mind giving me a broad understanding of the business and where you're at? So maybe you could tell me kind of an overview of what's going on in your business and what's currently happening. And just sit back and shut up and let them talk. And they may give you half of these things right there. Sometimes I'll ask that, and they'll tell me about their lead gen, how long they've been around. Sometimes they might just say, what's going on in the business is we've been around 2 years and we're currently struggling with our acquisition, right? They might keep it very vague. They might elaborate. You never know. And then we're going to inject all these things and ask these. And these are listed in an order that I generally run through them, but this is manageable, and I want you guys to get that down. I'm always going to ask the next question, not based on what's the next one on my framework. It's this one. I'm going to ask the next question on here that's relevant to where they left off with what they just said. So if I start off with this question, great. So Ray, why don't you tell me a little about kind of your expertise? Like, who do you serve, and maybe what do you charge for your services? Well, Ray, I'm a Facebook ad agency, And I really serve, individual brands that are looking to, scale and grow here in 2024 and beyond, and brands that are generally have a minimum advertising budget of $3,000 a month. Let's just say is the number, right? Okay, great. So, that being said, I'm kind of curious, right? Um, how long have you been running these offers, and how many clients are you currently working with? And then that might lead to a spinoff of, they might start talking about their lead gen. So then I would go down to this. Gotcha. So you just mentioned lead gen. So what are you currently doing to acquire your clients? Well, Ray, we're running Facebook ads and we're doing cold email. Great. So why don't you tell me, what do you like about that process and what's really working for you? Okay, I get it, man. And on the flip side of that, what don't you like about this process and what's not working or what's become a struggle? So again, you're going to customize this, and I can help most of our clients do this if we have the time, or depending on what program you're in, you have access to me and some calls with me. Happy to help you do this, but this is pretty, you should know kind of as a business owner and the service you're providing, generally the main 6 or 8 data points you need to know. The situation phase, or as some people call it, the discovery phase, is really just all about making sure we have the right person, assessing their business and their goals, and then making sure that we actually are the ideal solution to solve said problem. If we go through discovery and we feel like those things don't add up, they're not our ideal client, they're not suffering from this problem, we're not the best company to help them, I would just be honest, give them some free resources and refer them to who can help them best, rather than go any further in the call, right? And then we'll get down to the problem. So the problem will get uncovered in here, right? When you're talking about this, I don't want you guys to think you're rehashing questions, but what I want you guys to realize is, generally speaking, when we get a client or a prospect's problem, we're getting what's called a symptom or a surface level problem, when we really need to get down to the real or the root problem, right? So by doing that, once we've identified what the main problems are, and we're just going to re-emphasize, right? Usually this has already come up, but in this case, in this example, I would say, okay, Ray, so based on what you told me, your main problem is your ads profitability and you're increasing, your rising CPA. What do you think is causing that problem? And then let's get into the deeper aspect of it. How long has it been a problem, right? Things like that. Now, can you tell me a little about the impact that this problem is having on you professionally, or hell, possibly even personally, right? And then that lets them open up. Now, this is a big changing point, this next one I want to cover, because what a lot of people do and what a lot of sales programs teach, and I don't want to say there's no right or wrong way, because they can both work. I just think one is much more effective, okay? But generally speaking, they're going to tell you, cool, that now that you've assessed the situation, they suffer from the right problem, you're the best fit for it, yada, yada, yada. You've dove into the problem, and now you understand the real or the root problem. Now we can go ahead and say, hey, man, based on where you're at, what you're struggling with, that's exactly the type of person we work with and how we help. And based on the problem that you're having, is it cool if I show you the solution that we've helped other ad agencies, overcome this rising CPA cost, right? And that sounds all good, and that's not bad. But what I like to do first is, all right, Ray, so based on everything we talked about, and, we're on this call trying to find a solution. Let's say you partner with myself or another agency or another data provider or somebody else. Tell me what an ideal solution looks like for you, right? And then just sit back and shut up. And they're going to tell you exactly what they're looking for. Now, the only way this one, and it doesn't, but people say it backfires on me, is they say, well, Ray, they say back to me, I'm not really sure what the solution is. That's why I'm reaching out to you. Oh, I totally get it. 100%. My bad. Let me rephrase this. Just close your eyes and picture how your business is running 90 days down the road. Let's say we've solved this problem. What's going on in the business? What's the ad profitability look like? What's the CPA look like? What are the activities or the tasks and the duties in the business that you're focusing on? What's changing or what's better? So just tell me how it looks in an ideal world if this problem's fixed, right? And then they're going to tell you, well, I'd like the ads to be 18% more profitable. I'd like my CPA to be about 30% lower where it was last year, right? Yada, yada, yada. And they're going to give you very specifics, right? And then once I point that out, I'm like, okay, so basically, like, that's exactly what an ideal solution looks for. I might get in a little farther and say, like, what have you currently been doing to fix the problem? That's just there as a reminder. Again, you've probably already discussed and went over this, but just in case, if you haven't, it's just kind of a reminder. But once I go through all that, I'm like, okay, great. So if we're able to get that problem solved, right, how would things be different for you, right? If you had, first party in-market data and a system that knows that you're going to be only reaching your quality market, do you feel like if you had that injected, you could reach those 30% lower CPAs? Yes, Ray, I do. Great. So I'm tying them down and making them feel like, hey, if I have this, I could achieve my goal, right? And then I like to switch it back on them real quick and be like, okay, Ray, so on the flip side of things, let's say we don't get this problem solved for 3 weeks, 3 months, hell, 3 years. What's your business looking like then? Well, Ray, if we don't get it solved in 3 weeks, I'll be a little, I'll be a little unhappy about that, I suppose, but it's not going to really break me, right? If I don't get this solved in 3 months, that's probably a failure on me because I'm booking these calls. We're talking right now. I'm actively looking for a solution. And as a business owner, I need to find that. If we don't get this solved for 3 years, right, I don't even think we'll be in business, to be honest with you. And another reason why I'm trying to solve this. Okay, great, man. I totally get where you're coming from. And to be often, I hear that quite often. Now, that all being said, and that's where I would make the transition. Is it cool if I show you how I've worked with dozens and dozens of other Facebook ad agencies and help them solve this problem in under 60 days and help them become, much more profitable with their ad campaigns? Cool if I share with you and show you that? Yeah, man, totally, right? So I always say when we're going to get in the pitch, I ask permission to go into it. In my transition, I'm asking permission. Don't go into price ever in the pitch. Price is down here further and for a very specific reason. But then I bring up some things when I'm getting into the pitch. I like to say, and this is what I teach my private students, especially my sales lab, sales reps and people that are closing for me, it's how to customize that pitch, right? So there's all kinds of different deliverables and features within our programs. And we need to emphasize the benefits, not talk much about the features, but the benefits. But what I always say is if we can't solve problem number 1 and the 2 for the business owner, they don't really care about problems 3, 4, and 5. So I'm going to customize that pitch very much to what he told me up here he was looking for in an ideal solution, right? He was looking for an ideal solution. And let's say 60 days down the road, his ad costs were at this, his profitability was here, his CPA were there. In my pitch, I'm going to screen share and bring up some things such as our ebook, our DAS document, our SPP overview, and screen share as I present. We have pitch decks. I have all kinds of other things I like to call visual sales resources that I am showing to the prospect as I'm giving an explanation and kind of going through my pitch and making it more interactive and make sure they follow along, right? So again, when I get into it, what I'm going to show him in the pitch, and in this particular case, is instances where CPAs dropped, where ad profitability went up, where the exact strategy we implemented, examples of other niches and industries right with him that we did. So what we're really selling on every call, and this is probably the most impactful thing I'm going to say, we are selling certainty. Whenever anyone asks you what you're selling, you're not selling ads, you're not selling data, you're selling certainty that you can solve a problem or deliver a desired result. That's what you're trying to do. So once you get into a pitch, I always do what's called a temp check, and this is very important. A lot of people skip over this. Very important to getting into the close, but okay, great. So based off everything I just ran you through, Ray, does that all make sense? And do you kind of see how this could solve that problem? Yeah, Ray, no questions. That totally made sense. Okay, awesome. So you obviously see some value here and see how we could solve your problem. Yeah, I would say that's true. Great. So, I guess finances aside, Joe, because obviously that has to line up for anything to make sense. But in terms of what I've broken down on a scale of 1 to 10, 1, Ray, you're ugly, let's hang up now. 10, I need this in my business like yesterday. Where do you fall on that end of the spectrum? Now, if you've done your job right, you should get an 8 or higher here. Anytime I get below an 8, I'm probably going to reemphasize, okay, Joe, so you're a 7 out of 10. That's cool. That kind of shows me 2 things. Number 1, you can kind of see some value here. And number 2, you see this as a solution to the problem. Let me ask you, what's missing from here, or what don't I have included that would get you closer to an 8 or a 9 or a 10 in terms of how this would solve your problem? And what they're going to often say is, well, Ray, I also don't have, I'm a little concerned. This all sounds great, but I'm curious about the level of support, right? And a lot of times they're going to mention something that's also in your program that you might not have highlighted in the pitch. So, okay, I totally get where you're coming from, Joe. Did you realize that we do 5 weekly workshops for all of our clients that you can attend, troubleshoot, screen share, and address all your problems in real time, while also giving you the support so you can implement and execute better and better each day? Oh, shoot, you do that? You didn't mention that, right? Yeah, I'm sorry. There was so much that we covered. I might have let that slide. I'll be honest. I can never cover everything we do in a 8-minute sales pitch in the middle of the call, right? But that all being said, now that you know that, where do you stand on that 1 through 10? Oh, with that level of support and execution, I'm probably closer to a 9, right? Okay, great, right? Or if they're really low, right, you can even go lower, like, hey, you're at a 6. Why aren't you a 5, right? And why would we ask that? Because now they're going to highlight what they like. Well, Ray, I'm not a 5 because I actually believe this and this, right? So now they're going to start talking about what they liked or where they do have certainty. And that's your building block to elaborate on and get them to a little higher of a number here, right? But it's very rare for me, at least. And in the beginning, it might be a little different. But it's very rare for me to get less than an 8 when I've presented. But you want to make sure they have certainty. And then once they basically tell you that, okay, now that's great. You're a 10 out of 10. You might ask me why this thinks, once they get up to a 9 or a 10, just reiterate, oh, that's great. You're a 9 or you're a 10, right? Do you mind me asking why you think this will work, and then it's going to make them start talking about what they believe in and start selling themselves right before you go into pitch. So another thing that this framework is designed to do, and the second most important thing I'm going to probably say, is remember the phrase telling isn't selling, meaning anything you might want to say to the prospect and it comes out of your mouth is met with sales resistance. You have a bias. You are a service provider. You're trying to make a sale at the end of the call. This all comes along. But if I can ask the right questions to make them say it, the prospect is always going to believe what comes out of their mouth. So I don't want to tell them, hey, my program's great. You need this. I want to ask them and make them say, Ray, I need this thing to get this problem solved. Hey, man, I totally agree that you need it. And I'm glad you see it that way because, you would have never believed me if I said it, right? Yeah, you're totally right, Ray. Like I had to get it for myself. Cool. Okay, perfect. So now the last piece in the investment, Joe, and the best part of that is in order to get your profitability back where you'd like it and to lower that CPA back in the realm of being on this planet, so you never have to worry about possibly going out of business and those rising ad costs again. It's just 5K to get started. As long as that lines up, we accept credit or debit. What works best for you? So that is what's called assuming the sale. Make them tell you no, because you guys would be surprised. I bet you think this never happens, but there's times I've said that and they pulled it out and go, well, Ray, it's a Visa 5-4, and they just start reading it off, right? So if they're totally bought in, don't give them the chance for objections. Ask them, as long as that lines up, yada, yada, this works best for you. If they don't start going into their credit payment information or saying, give me a second, let me grab my card, what have you, they're going to hit you with an objection. Well, Ray, that all does sound good, but I need to think about it. I need to ask my spouse. I need to check my finances, whatever it is. So then down here, we have this called AAA Overcoming Objection Framework, where it's always this on rinse and repeat. We want to acknowledge what they said, agree, and then ask a question deeper. So for instance, in this space specifically where I'm making this example, somebody running Facebook ads looking to embed or implement first-party data to get better results, I'm going to kind of acknowledge what they just said. Let's say, Ray, I've tried this before and working with a company to increase my quality of my ads, and I was burned in the past. Hey, man, I totally get where you're coming from. I agree there's a lot of overpromising and under-delivering in this space, but let me ask you something, Joe. Do you see the differences in what we do here in terms of our data quality, our accuracy, our historical match rates, as well as the implementation and support you get? So do you see some differences in what we do as opposed to what you've tried in the past? And then sit back and shut up. And if you've done this right, they're going to tell you, oh, yeah, this is different. This does have what I need. And they're going to start reselling themselves again. So there's a whole framework. And then there's transcripts, right? These are the actual, the yellow and the green highlighting are actually transcripts from calls Jesse and I took and broke down. So we played one in here. We just put one for each objection. But partner, spouse, this is how it should look, right? Bad timing, this is how it should look. I've been burned by another program or I'm in another program. This is what should happen. So all this stuff is here on the screen. These are the things you need to remember to start selling. So let me reemphasize. Remember to yourself when you're starting a call, telling isn't selling. Think when you're getting onto the call, the mindset of I'm jumping on here to change somebody's life and help them solve a problem. Not I'm coming on here to close a deal, right? So get the mindset right. Remember, you are selling certainty. So if I don't assess their situation properly, how am I ever going to deliver certainty in the pitch that I can solve that problem? That's why I think the discovery or the situation phase is the most relevant towards the rest of this working and ultimately getting a closed sale or a new client, right? And remember, as a new sales rep selling anything, or maybe even just selling this, start off with making sure we're doing every phase in the right sequential order, and then get better at each phase and refine yourself. So yeah, that should be very, very helpful. And guys, let me know if you have any thoughts. Down in the description under here will be the link to this script or this framework that you're looking at. So everybody can just go click it, go up to the top, click file, make copy, make your own and go, customize according to, how it fits your business, your offer, your verbiage, right? Some people are in more professional niches. I'm going to talk to lawyers different than I'm going to talk to roofers, et cetera, et cetera.